Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Eddie Marcus here again. And this is part of my message to the poor. You see, I want the poor to understand this, that I'm a scientist, a social scientist. You people, associations, and living together and apart, and what moves and grooves your ups and downs are the things that are number one on my mind when it comes to understanding all of you, when it comes to understanding individually you, when it comes to understanding myself. These are things that I have to work with. These are tools that I have to work with as a scientist. But as a one that's living, utilizing those tools for which I have on the path that I'm traveling, I'm one that's open, like a sponge, to receive the good, the bad, to push out what I don't want, to keep what I do want. And in the process, the thing that has me here speaking to you today is that I was able to discern something that I had not discerned before. And that was the true spiritual power, to be able to touch it, to feel it, to know what it is, to be able to grasp it, to encompass it. Open my eyes that I might see clearly the world in which I live, the world which had blinded me with its own way of thinking, the world that has blinded us all. I was able to see what it was now that I had seen clearly. Before, all I knew that America was the greatest nation on the face of the earth. I was taught that. Everywhere I went, I was taught that. And I hadn't been any other places, so I accepted that. And when I had the experience of going other places, it still mostly confirmed that when you look at things, when you hear things, those senses, it still indicated that America perhaps was the greatest nation that I had visited. But when you have gone beyond all of that, and you've seen the ultimate nation, the nation where people are living in peace, where all of the people are prosperous, where all of the people are joyous, then you see what you've always hoped you'd see, always hoped you'd live. And now you have a comparison of what you have and what really is. And so, having the two, you can see all of that clutter that needs to be removed in order to take you to that place that you've seen. Now, I've seen that. And I come to tell the people, all of you are special to God. And God cares no more about the rich than he does the poor, or the poor than he does the rich. But the focus right now for which I come is the poor. Because out of everything that the nation has done in its existence, the worst thing that it has done, worse than war and killing of innocent individuals anywhere, is what it has done to its own people, what it has done to itself as a body. People living under bridges, people living from paycheck to paycheck, people who have no check, people who are trying to live on subsistence whose amount equals only a fraction of what it costs to live. And then they have the nerves to say, pull yourself up by your bootstrap. And the power that created all things says to me to say to you, who do they think they are? For I, says the power, created it all for all. And those who don't have is so because of two reasons. There were some that were willing to violate the rules and do to others what they wouldn't want done to themselves. And the other, those who are willing to accept it rather than stand up and give me honor. So that's why it exists. But then in the program, my people, in the program, powers that be who says there is no God, who says that there is one power, and that is the power of he who claims it and wills it. And so they decided to conquer all of the people. But they knew that you would not subserve yourselves to them. So they had to catch you off guard. They saw that you were not willing to work with kings and queens, even though it took violence, oppression to those who submitted. But they decided to come up with something better than all of that. And that was to get your focus on a new God. And what is God supposed to be? God is supposed to be there to answer all of your prayers. But the preacher told you that he's supposed to answer your prayers and got you thinking that it's supposed to come down like a window of heaven open. And this is only because you paid your tithes. They don't mean to mislead you. It's just that they don't understand what has happened, what has taken place here. And so they tell you that story. And while those who disregard God or any God above themselves come up with something to replace the God. A God that would allow you to do anything that you could possibly want. And what is that? Money. Whether it's in America, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Africa, wherever people are, it's money. And people will do anything to get money. Anything to get money. To get a little piece of that God. So they can walk a little bit down the valley of pleasure. So they can walk just a step down the valley of life. Now that is the majority of the people. But the few people, they want to run down the path. And they have all the money. And see, they have the money because, what is it? They are the ones who are standing up. The true God of the world. You see, the true God of the world is not the money. The money is just to keep your eyes off the true God and keep your mind on the money. But the true God is he or she or whatever that controls the money. They are the true God. But your focus is on the dollar. And in all instances, you are being manipulated. You are being controlled by a conglomerate of self-made gods. But the true God wants you to know that you got the power to stop all of that. Because nothing belongs to anybody. Everything belongs to God. Doesn't belong to you. Doesn't belong to any race. Doesn't belong to any particular nation. It all belongs to God for the benefit of all those who live by it. And a nation that is led by the Spirit of God knows that. A person that is led by the Spirit of God knows that. And could yield to no other allegiance, person or nation. And the world would be a better place because of it. But until then, if you're not walking in that path, you're walking further and further away. Further and further away. And they got something at the end of that road they call Armageddon. That's at a place where people have taken themselves to the lowest point. And now it's live or die. But you know what? You have no power to live at that point. You are utterly defeated by your own will. So the good gracious God of love sends me before my people. And I'm focusing on the poor. Poor people who are living under bridges. Poor people who have no place to stay. Poor people who are going in shelters. Poor people who are eating at shelters. Poor people who are going to shelters to get food. Poor people who have no jobs. Poor people who have no insurance. Poor people who are living from paycheck to no check. Poor people who are just crazy. Poor people who are losing their homes. Poor people who are paying more in taxes than they should. Poor people who are being beat down. Poor people who are riding in raggedy cars. Communities that's falling apart. Diseases that are running rampant because they say there's no money to find a cure, when everybody knows that no one wants the cure but the one that's sick. Everybody else is making money off the sickness. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you're the poor people. You are the closest one to sanity. Everybody else, for the purposes of this discussion, are strictly insane. All of your pains and suffering are okay with them. Not even knowing that what they see in you is the same thing that's going to happen to them tomorrow if they don't wake up. Insane. So God has asked me to come to you who are the closest thing to being sane. and inspire you by telling you the truth for which I have mentioned to you. And that truth would open up your eyes, and you would begin to stand up. Stand up. And you will become precious. Not that you are any more precious than you were before, but then you didn't know it. Now you do. You are precious because you see the light. You're precious because you know whose light it is. And you know whose light you stand in. And when you speak, you know for whom you speak. And there is no fear in love. And we know what they will try to do to us as they try to blind the other people and keep them blind, to blind the generations that are coming forth. But it is our duty, it is our responsibility. We will say Jesus didn't live, but if Jesus lived, what would Jesus have come to done according to what they have said about it? He would have come to open the eyes of the world. According to what they have said about it, everything fell short of the importance of letting each person on the face of the earth know that there's a God and there's a right way to live. And that anything that's brought under subjection under any other force other than the right way is a kingdom living in sinking sand, destined to fail. So I just wanted to leave that with you. And my people, the poor people, be warned. The devil won't get you. No, 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 no. Why? Because now you're walking into a new arena under the protection of truth, under the protection of love. Bye-bye.